Being a dungeon master can be a lot of work, and there's a lot of pressure to be really good at it, especially for people who are new to the hobby, whose main understanding of DMing comes from actual play podcasts like Critical Role or Dimension 20. Now, on this channel, I will always say, the only way to become a good DM is to start off being a bad one. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any tricks that you can take advantage of to appear to be a better DM than you actually are. If you want to support this channel, the best way to do that is by clicking that subscribe button. Anyways, on with the video. The easiest way to tell if someone is a new DM is just by the way they speak. A lot of the times, people DMing for the first time are going to act like the embodiment of nervousness and insecurity. I'm talking about stuttering, ums, ahs, likes. Speaking in that pattern really shows that you don't really know what you're talking about. If you want people to believe that you know what you're doing, you have to talk like you do know what you're doing. Firstly, you sound a lot more confident if you, instead of trying to try to fill in blanks like this, you try to fill it like this and extend it out that doesn't sound confident. Instead, if you pause, wait, think, it sounds like I'm talking for dramatic effect, when really, I'm just trying to think of the next thing that I'm going to say. But it sounds way more confident because it sounds as if I'm not afraid to be interrupted. I know that they're going to stop and listen and hear what I'm going to say, so I don't feel the need to try to fill in my language with those bad habits. It can be a hard habit to break, and I still work really, really hard to try to break that habit and try to just speak and let those pauses exist as I think. But if you can get good at that, at avoiding those likes, ums, ahs, or sorries, especially sorries, if you're overly apologizing, that just shows that you don't know what you're talking about. And it's okay to not know. However, being able to speak with confidence, even when you're not confident, is hugely important for looking like you know what you're doing. Now that we have you speaking confidently, the next thing we're going to work on is trying to keep your players on edge, even if there isn't much to keep them on edge about. And to do that, you've probably heard this before, but a great thing to do is to just every now and again, when it feels like nothing interesting's happening, just roll a random d20. Look at it, kind of give it a look, and then don't tell your party anything. They're going to ask you some questions. They're going to freak out a little bit. They're going to want to know what that dice roll was for. Don't tell them, because it wasn't for anything. It didn't need to be for anything. The whole purpose of it was to give your party the idea that something good or bad might be happening soon. If you want to be extra spicy, ask a party member for a roll and then react somewhat mildly to it and then move on. Even if it's a 1, even if it's a 20, they roll 1, you just go, all right, and then move on. They roll 20, you go, okay, and then move on. And they're going to want to know, oh, what did the 20 get? What did the 1 get? And you're going to go, just wait and see. And then they're going to think that, if they rolled low, that must mean that something's coming that they're not going to be able to anticipate because they rolled low. Or if they rolled a 20, they're going to think, oh, I dodged something, but I didn't get to know what it was because I just dodged it. And that's going to put them on edge. That's going to lead them to be questioning why you did that and what's going on. And an important thing about doing that is making sure to never show your hand. Don't tell your party that this is a thing that you do, because once they know that random dice rolls just mean you're trying to add suspense, you're not going to have that effect anymore. Now, one of the things that I see a lot of DMs struggle with is making their games feel like they have an impact, that their players' actions are determining how the game goes. And for a lot of new DMs, you're going to end up with an experience that feels very railroady, very one-track path, because the DM only really has one plan in mind, or is so committed to their one plan that they're gonna make it work no matter what. And if that is the case, the party are likely to just feel less engaged with the game. If their choices don't matter, why are they making choices? So what you gotta do is you have to tell your party their choices matter, even if they don't matter. It's like the telltale method, where when important actions come up, you act like it was because of a player choice, even if that would have happened if the party made a different choice instead. For example, when your party complete a quest and get a reward, don't just give them the reward, but say, oh, well, because you completed it in this amount of time, you're gonna get this reward. Now, maybe they would have gotten the same reward no matter how long it took them to complete this quest. However, because you said it like that, they're going to believe that the time they take to complete quests has a direct impact on the reward that they get for the quest. And the best part about this is that you aren't telling them that they got a better reward for going fast, or they got a worse reward for going slow. You're just telling them that they got a reward and that's how long it took them to complete the quest. If they think it took them longer than it should have, they're gonna think that they got a worse reward. If they think that they did it quite quickly, they're gonna think they got a better one. And the players are gonna be none the wiser. This isn't like a video game where you can go back and see how actions would have played if you had done things differently. They only get to see the one timeline of events. So when you tell them that choices matter, they kind of just have to believe you. And now again, this one does come with the caveat of if you are telling them that their choices matter, and then they realize what you're doing, which they're probably only going to ever find out if you tell them this is what you're doing, then for the rest of your games, every time that choices actually do matter, there's a pretty good chance they're going to believe that they actually don't, and this was predestined. So again, it's something you have to be careful with, but it's mostly just not telling your party that you're using these tricks. Now, I did want to make some tips for people who aren't trying to bamboozle their party or don't exactly have a high enough charisma stat to lie straight to their party's faces and not feel bad about it or start giggling about it. So the next two are some things that anyone can do and anyone should do. This is about putting in the least amount of effort and getting the most amount of quality out of your games. And so the first one I'm going to talk about is playlists. Music is such an important part of a D&D game. You often don't realize it when you don't have music. I mean, a D&D game runs fine even if no music is involved. However, once music is added into that game and you get that experience of the right music playing at the right time, music changing between locations or setting contexts, the game feels more alive and dynamic, and you can't really ever go back to not having music after you have music. And the best part is, you can put a playlist together very, very quickly, or even just find a playlist online that other people have used for their D&D games. Both on Spotify and YouTube Music, if you search up D&D Combat, D&D Tavern, you will find different playlists that people have made. So in reality, this would only take a couple minutes if you just want to use someone else's. But even if you want to make your own, at the most, it's going to take you an hour to put out all the playlists that you need. What are the playlists that you need? Well, in my opinion, you need at least 3 playlists. And these are the playlists that I always make sure I have together for a game before I start. The first one is the intro playlist. This is the music that plays at the very start of the game, almost like an announcement that the game is starting, and will usually play throughout my recap of the previous session. This is an audio cue that D&D is starting and it's time to get into D&D, and in many ways the music that I've used for my games have almost Pavlov's dogged my party into getting into the mood and the mind space to play D&D once the music starts. For me, I like to use the prologue music from Dragon Ball. However, if you find any music online from your favorite TV show that has a last time on or this time on sequence, that will work perfectly for this type of thing. The next playlist I'm gonna make is my neutral playlist. And my neutral playlist is something that can kind of play in any setting. It's slower music, it feels more like backdrop, it's just to give the scene a little bit of atmosphere, a little background sound, and isn't really meant to connect to any strong emotion or is able to connect to multiple emotions at the same time. Now, I might switch the songs up depending on my setting. If it's a more somber setting, I might use more Walking Dead music. If it's a more light felt fun setting, I might use Pokemon music. But the idea is, it doesn't matter what building they're in, what city, town, whatever setting they happen to be in, if I need music for where they are, this is going to be good enough to be background sound for this scene. And then the third playlist I'll make is usually a combat playlist. In a combat playlist, it's pretty obvious, it's the music you play when combat is happening. Pretty self-explanatory, don't really need to go into this that much, other than oftentimes I will make multiple combat playlists for different contexts. So right now, for my current game, I have a general combat music, which I use for any random fight that they happen to go into that doesn't really matter. And then for my next one, it will be for boss music, and obviously a lot more dramatic, a lot more engaging to get the party hyped up for a big fight. And then my next playlist will often be a triumphant, the party are about to win, the bad guy's at low health. And then I have my final combat playlist, which is usually really weird and unnerving music, sounds that don't really make a lot of sense, really weird and unnerving, and I'll play this for when the party are losing the fight, when they aren't going to win, the bad guy has too much health, they've taken too much damage, too many people are down, and that's kind of my audio signal to them that they need to run away, they need to retreat, they're in a bad situation. After that, if I still want to make more playlists, which I often do, we're going to have tavern playlists, shop playlists, just any setting that I know the party are going to get into, I'll make a playlist for that. Although obviously you can just use the neutral playlist for that, so really you only need those main three, and then you can make as many more as you feel like. The final thing that will make you appear to be a much better DM than you actually are is just shutting up. A lot of times, new DMs tend to talk themselves into verbal traps that they can't get themselves out of, and often end up punishing them later down the road. For example, a player might ask a question, such as, oh, do I understand how magic works in this setting? And then you as a DM might respond, oh yes, this is how magic works, this is how it's all connected, blah 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 blah. And the player wasn't asking for a whole explanation, at least not yet. They were asking if their character understands. And all you have to say if they ask that question is, yeah, you're a wizard, your character would understand that, why? And then they'll tell you why. And maybe you didn't need to give that full answer yet. Maybe they were just curious if this is a known thing in your world. Maybe this was just something that they wanted to put on their character sheet, that this is something their character knew. And now that I haven't given them the full information yet, if I decide I want to change my mind about how magic works in my setting, because I haven't needlessly given that information away yet, I can change it later and come back to it. Versus if you just give it away needlessly, well, now you're committed to that idea, even if it doesn't make sense with other things you've said about the world, or that idea actually prevents you from using an idea that you wanted to use. Another reason to stay quiet is that players will often build their own fun just by talking amongst each other. As a DM, we're often going to be very highly engaged into our games, focusing on what everyone is saying, trying to think of responses, trying to think of the next thing that's going to come up. And because of that, when people are asking questions to other characters, we might feel the need to butt in and give the answer, or just try to remain involved in the conversation. However, you don't need to do that. If you just sit back and relax and let the players talk amongst themselves, you're going to just have so much less to worry about. They're building their own fun. They're stalling their own time. They're giving you the opportunity to double check with your notes with what's coming up next, or what you want to do later on, or what thing you want to make note of that you didn't get a chance to make note of because you were too busy playing out the scene. A lot of times when my players are talking amongst themselves to build up a plan, I take that opportunity to have a drink of water, to go on my phone, to write a note to myself about something that's coming up. It's a good opportunity to take a break when oftentimes you are the one who's going to be talking the most. Some of my greatest D&D memories came from me and my party just talking amongst ourselves and ending up in really fun conversations. Conversations that the DM was just not involved in. So if you just give yourself a break and just shut up, you'll just have better games. Thank you for watching this video. Again, the best way to support this channel is hitting that subscribe button. Thank you again for watching, and this is the end of the video.